stuff in there. You can see there's a whole pile of needle bearings in the back there. Get the light going. There's live action for you guys. All right, so a little biannual update of what I got going on. As you can see, the LTD has no more motor. And it is right here, and that is because I blew it up in some capacity. It makes an awful racket, which I will go ahead and show here. Pardon the cell phone video. And anyways, the objective today is just to do a RCA, kind of just figure out what let go, what happened. This is the little huffer 2.0 for those people that are not in the know. And this was out of a Suburban. It had like 300,000 miles. The only thing that was really done to this was I gapped the rings and converted the electronics to Gen 4. This was like a Gen 3.5 motor, which I converted fully to Gen 4. It has a different oil pan and Corvette accessories and what have you. But otherwise is pretty much a bone stock operation. You can tell it's a Gen 3 block still. These knock sensors were blocked up. But we're gonna pull this thing apart and see what happened. This engine was doing really good. I mean, it's 3 years old. It's been in that car. This car has seen all sorts of bad tuning, good tuning. It's seen it all, so I guess it really doesn't owe me much because I paid 300 bucks for it. But that's pretty much what's going on. And I mean, here's the update. So I got the LTD going pretty quick, as you can see here. The short track really has a lot to be desired. Went a 638 in the 1/8, a 980 in the quarter, about 145 on the trap, and then brought that 980 to a 976, and I don't know, the other slips somewhere, but got it to a 965. So really chipping away. That's the last photo I have before it blew up. And I got this really cool hubcap setup. So that's kind of worthwhile showing. That's the only thing that's really changed. But as you can see, I mean, this is still a 160 60 foot. So this should really be 950, 940 car, maybe dip into the 5s in the 1/8 without really putting a lot more power. But let's crack this puppy open and see what's going on. All right, just gonna zap these things off because I really don't care. So, in true sloppy mechanics fashion, these are the reused head bolts. These have been reused once already. I may or may not reuse them again. Those were never a problem. Like, it never pushed water. We never had head gasket problems at 20 PSI. And I'm probably just gonna jam them right back on. Can't get that. That's annoying. Man. Forgot I gotta take these stupid things off. Not even doing it sequence, but I mean, does it matter? Probably not. Stock bolts. And there goes the water. And this is probably going to make a mess everywhere. What are you going to do? And that's not what I wanted to see. Everything looks good. So I'm really hoping for some kind of a failure in the valve train. You can see here, stuff looks pretty decent. Heads look fine. Good old E85 cleaning everything up. Take off the head gasket. Probably just gonna get a new one, but in case I want to reuse this, I'll try to keep it intact. The effort was made, you know. And I'll bring the camera over here in a second once we're done with this. I'm gonna go ahead and zap out the lifter trays, see for any kind of carnage. And it sounded audibly like it was on this side, but I mean, who knows? I'm hoping that. So, all right, taking out the lifter trays. I'm really hoping I got a bad lifter. It sounded like it was on this side. I don't know if it's, oh, that's not good. I just found a chunk of something. That was in the lifter bore, so, I mean, it could be a lifter that just got nuked. It did sound like it was coming from this side. This lifter's okay. I'm gonna try to put this in some sort of order and very quickly see if this is magnetic. There's just a piece of like huge piece of metal just chilling in here. I'm not sure what that's all about. It was on the, let's see, 1, 3, 5, number 7 lifter board. The cam looks okay from what I can see. Let me get some order to this operation here. Oh, we got carnage. This lifter's smoked. This lifter is smoked. So that is best case scenario. So this motor's fine. I don't even know if I'm gonna crack open the bottom end, to be honest. Assuming we can find the rest of this, you can see I probably wiped the cam. I'll bring the camera over here. So this is what I'm talking about. Just absolutely smoked. So that was this lifter bore here. So I found something interesting. All of my lifters are nuked and then it's just rolling around in this dirty tray. So they weren't actually this dirty coming out. This one's obviously still functions, but broke off in some capacity. This is the one that was fully smoked. So there you have it. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 good lifters. The remaining, all junk. So I'm not sure what happened. Like maybe I'm smashing a rev limiter too hard, or I don't know. But the cam lobe actually looks surprisingly good, but I bet when I pull it, it's not gonna look so happy. We'll see what's in the bottom of the pan. I guess I might pull the rod caps and just see how the bearings look. But I'm still tempted to put this back together, but clearly there's a lot of junk in the pan. The crazy thing is, this engine had like really good oil pressure, even though it sounded like crap. It was like 70 PSI at the top end. And just idling it was 35 PSI, and it sounded like the thing was about to blow apart because all these lifters were making all sorts of bad noise. But it might be salvageable. I just need to pull the caps to the rods and check the bearings. Cylinders all look good. You can see that E85 cleaning up the sludge pup quite a bit. They were not this clean 3 years ago. But this is 300,000 miles on these lifters, so I mean that doesn't really help them at all. But I really got to figure that out, why all of these were more or less nuked on the passenger side, and then only had one that was messed up on this side, or maybe like one or two. But the majority of the damage was here, so no idea. I got some homework to do. All right, so pulled the front cover off, and I have gotten, at least in my opinion, extremely lucky because everything looks salvageable so far. But look at this. This is how I found the cam gear. It's still enough to be in time, but holy smokes, man. I mean, that's at least a couple of degrees, so that's definitely gonna affect the tune-up. That's not ideal. I mean, finger tight, not good. I'm guessing, I mean, that allows the cam to go back and forth a little bit too, which is probably not helping out the rockers, or the, not the rockers, the lifters, rather. All right, so upon further inspection, it looks like the little dowel that is typically in the cam has broken off, so that has more goodies that are gonna be in the bottom of this pan. And then these holes look a little wallered out, so I'll probably have to get a new cam gear. That's not that big a deal though. I don't know, it's a little risky putting this thing back together. There's a lot of parts that have fallen in here, but I think my angle is I'm gonna keep everything super cheap, try to rebuild this thing for $300-400 bucks and just see what it does. I'm gonna pull the rest apart and see what's going on. All right, so I'm gonna pull out the cam here, see what we got going. I'm expecting that this thing is totally nuked and may fight me a little bit to come out. Hopefully I don't nick the bearings up too bad, but oh yeah, it's gonna fight me. Tell you what, let me get the I'm very surprised. This camshaft looks brand new so far. I'm expecting these last lobes to be wiped out. Wow. I can't even believe that. I mean, this cam could literally be reused. That is wild. I don't know if you can see that, but none of the lobes. I mean, there's witness marks to where it was piss, but it must have just recently failed, and there's a little nick there. I mean, I could probably reuse this. Is that going to cause damage down the road? Maybe. All right. This is a delicate operation. Oh yeah, we got all sorts of stuff in here. We got a metal recycling operation in this pan. It's kind of tough to see. Well, certainly there's some lifter parts. We'll just take those out. We're gonna not need those in our pan anymore. That's what that is. We're just gonna go fishing here. Oh yeah, we got, oh, there's the pin to the camshaft. Nice. I'm just going fishing here for parts I feel all sorts of roller bearings. You can kind of see them there. Fishing those out from the lifters. Here's another chunk of lifter. But the $1,000,000 question is, do we have anything in the oil pickup tube? That's kind of why I wanted to take this off. It doesn't feel like it. And I'm gonna take a quick peek in the windage tray before I rotate this thing over. That way I don't rotate any junk into the rotating assembly. All right. Yeah, it looks clear in the windage tray. So, all right, yeah, I'll clean the pan up. There's all sorts of stuff in there. You can see there's a whole pile of needle bearings in the back there. Get the light going. There's live action for you guys. Look at all that stuff in there. In case you can't see. Got half a set of lifters in here. Look at that. All right, so I just discovered something, and I should have seen this sooner. But this lifter bore is kind of wounded. I have no idea if you'll be able to see that on the video. So I'm trying to move it in several spots. But that's a wounded lifter bore compared to this one, where everything's nice and round and shiny and not missing chunks. So here's the deal. I pulled the lifter that came out of that side. All right, so the outer section of this lifter that came out of this bore isn't really scratched up or beat up too bad. So I think I'm just gonna send it. I really don't like doing that, but for a good description here, I would estimate that only 20%, so I'm gonna use this spring as a reference. I'm gonna estimate that the damage is only to there, meaning we have this whole part of the section to still give us a good seal and allow the lifter to travel with good pressure. That's a theory and a little bit of a gamble, but it's either that or get a whole nother block or get this thing machined, which is, I mean, that's big money. So, you know, I like to keep things on a budget, and I ended up doing a quick touch-up paint right here. Everything was really dirty, so you can see it's pretty shiny there. And then I might paint these motor mounts. They're actually, this is a K-member for a Ford-based motor, so it kind of is a goofy setup. I had to make these adapters to fit. So I might pretty those up and chop kind of along the line there, so it doesn't look so dumb. But otherwise, just got to rebuild the motor pretty much. I'll get back to you guys later. So, got this thing flipped over, and that is not deck school. This is all like straight sludge pup rust water out of this shitty old 300,000 mile motor. I'm gonna go ahead and take off the oil pump pickup tube, and then we'll take off the scraper, or whatever, windage tray, whatever we call it these days. So let's get after that. There we go. Okay. That O-ring looks all right. I'm probably gonna use that. The pickup tube actually is pretty clean. I don't know if you guys can see that, but pickup tube gets a pass in my book. Put this in its hermetically sealed assembly area, and continue this disassembly here. Oh, there goes like a rock in the motor. Nice. Alright, so the goal here is just to take a quick peek at the rotating assembly, look for debris, and I'll probably pull maybe half of these rods and just check the bearings. Maybe I'll just look at the cap in just to see how things are doing. But as you can see, I mean, that is a 300,000 mile sludge pup right there. Well, I guess I called this one, this is the little huffer 2.0 motor. So my other car is the Sludge Panda, so that looks, just giving it a quick wiggle, that looks pretty good. And by check, I'm actually gonna take these caps off, but everything looks okay. Let me get some light on this situation. My angle here is just to make sure we don't have any bent rods that are visually bent. Looks like we're in pretty good shape, actually. I know a lot of people are like vomiting looking at this motor, but all the rods appear to be straight. I don't see any crazy stuff going on. So what I like to do is, I can't do this with two hands, so I'll usually index where the bolt tightens relative to the cap. That way it goes torque back on the same amount. And then I'll typically also just grab the torque on what it takes to loosen it. That way I have a pretty good idea back on the assembly, but I got some schmuck there. It might have been, actually I don't know what that is. Probably metal debris from the, I don't know, it looks pretty salvageable. So I'll advise you guys here in a bit once I get the bottom end teared apart. Alright, so the new parts have came in. I got 4 new lifter trays. I got the camshaft retainer plate. This is the Summit branded one they call a thrust plate. I guess potato. These are kind of nice. They have the recessed screws. It's what I used last time. I have a new cam gear which is currently installed. Actually LS1/LS7 style head gaskets. That's for, I forget what bore size that is. It's not technically correct, but I've used it last time. They're cheap, effective, works good. New factory bolt, because I'm a believer in that. New front seal. And got the copper gasket spray, which I'm a big believer in as well. Do have the new Delco, actually no, sorry, these are Delphi lifters. It was like 180 bucks, which didn't used to be that expensive years ago, but I guess that's just how the world's going these days. Those have been soaking for a day or two. This is the old cam gear. You can see this is the one that's all wallered out. And what I ended up doing is, of course, putting the new cam gear in there. Has the new camshaft in it. Got everything bolted up, this time with red Loctite. And I actually used, here's a good example, these bolts here. These have a slight, it's the same pitch, but it has a slightly coarser start. And it also has like a red Loctite on the back. In addition to that, I put on Loctite. So this should not be coming off again. I'll show you what those bolts look like though. This is off my old motor. There's that Loctite on the back I'm talking about. So, and then just from the feel, they start a little bit coarser, but these thread in just fine. It's the same pitch. So, long story short, use the main, well, the side bolts to the mains as cam bolts, because that's just how I roll. And also yesterday, I went ahead and resurfaced the surface here of the motor. I mean, I'd say I decked it, but I just used a razor blade and I got at it pretty good. You can see actually the factory machining marks in here still. So I much prefer doing it this way as opposed to hitting it with a whiz wheel, in my opinion. And again, I'm not a machine expert or expert engine builder, but in my opinion, when you hit it with a whiz wheel, you're a lot more likely to have low spots and uneven surface. Whereas this way, I mean, you're just scraping the crud off with the razor blades. So everything's really nice, and if you run your finger amongst it, everything's really nice and smooth. I think I showed this the other time. Got the pickup tube on the oil pan on there. The winch tray's installed. So today I will finish putting on the heads and hopefully the front timing cover and oil pan. And I'll show you one more thing that's kind of hilarious too. Let me flip up this motor first. All right, just to prove that this is definitely not like any kind of race motor, I have flipped over this engine. You can see that in the coolant passages, it's just like straight sludge rust. So I'll have to flush this out a couple of times. That's bad. It's just like rust goo. Here's the 300,000 mile heads. You know, just filled with like goo. Let me give you a better view. All right, here's a better view. I mean, there's just straight goo in these. These are not freshly machined by any stretch of the imagination, but hopefully good for 8's. We'll see. I mean, nothing fancy. These are still the truck heads, factory valves, factory casting for any of the doubters. I came up with a plan to get this thing up and running. So I do have some bearings. I purchased these like 3 years ago and had the intention of putting them in this motor. It didn't really need any bearings, so I just slapped it back together with the same bearings that this motor came with from the factory. But I'll put these new puppies in just as a precaution. And you can see here, I mean, even on the crank, there are some signs of debris going around here. And this is everything I picked up from the oil pan. I mean, we got a variety of you know, lifter pieces, little pin to the cam. There's little needle bearings all over in here, little lifters. So it's all large pieces of metal, and that's why you see the damage kind of, I mean, it's kind of superficial. But the cylinder bores are clean, the lifter bores are clean, the cam bearings are good. And it's kind of funny looking at this motor because literally the only thing new on this thing is the reluctor. Because this was a 24X motor, which I converted to 58. But otherwise, I mean, you can tell this thing is literally a stock rotating assembly from a 5.3, nothing special. So now it's gonna have new bearings. And of course has the new oil pump, which that was on it when I assembled it probably 3 years ago or something. But now I'll walk you through kind of what I'm gonna buy for the parts to get this unit up and running. And the goal is to have it running within the next week. So it's a pretty aggressive goal. First and foremost, these are the head bolts out of my LS2. So they've only been removed, they've never been reused. My policy on reusing head bolts is only reuse them once, because that's when they're like the best in terms of strength. And there was some study done based on like, you know, like how much they stretch and tensile strength and all that stuff. It gets pretty involved, but essentially if you reuse them once, you're apparently golden, and it hasn't failed me yet. So all right, so here's the parts that are going in the motor. The cost savings, like I try to bridge the gap between like totally sloppy mechanics, but like also somewhat responsible. So we discussed this, new bearings, have a replacement camshaft. This is literally the same grind. This one's been sitting inside. You can see it's a little, I don't know, it's got some stuff on it, but it's in pretty good condition. All right, so I went ahead and got the lifters in. Everything's dialed in. Let's hope that works. Else I'm out $400. My thought process is, you know, Yeah, I could do it right and wait a lot longer, but I'm not having fun when this is at a machine shop for like months and months and spending money on all sorts of machining and stuff that this thing probably needs. But it's, in my opinion, within enough specification to run decently and not have any kind of problems. You know, if I'm mistaken, so be it. I'll show my failures. And head gaskets, which I'll throw on. These are again for the 5.7. They're LS1 style, but they're not advertised for the 5.3, but yet the part number presumably is for high output 5.3. They work, so we're gonna run them. So final step of preparation, throwing on the trusted copper head gasket spray. Well, it's just copper spray a gasket, but you can clearly see typical use being head gaskets. Idea being, it takes care of any low spots, all that good stuff. So I'm gonna spray these puppies down and toss them on. All right, everything is now installed. I apologize, I didn't film much of putting this thing back together. Just really quick, since my SD card's about to fill up, I have the cheapest of cheap oil in here. I'm gonna fire it up, make sure we got oil pressure, all that good stuff, no funny noises. Make sure the motor's good, and drive it for maybe 20-30 miles, change the oil to something better. Okay, so I'm gonna wrap up this video real quick. You guys wanna know, does the new motor work? Well, I'm here to tell you that yes, it does. Already collected a small pile of time slips, and I'll kind of walk you through them real quick. So 980, went to a 976, most recently 968 on the new motor. Well, the quote unquote new motor. 965, 958. So it's obviously working, and been rebuilt for the cost of like 450 bucks and some sweat equity, all done in about a week. So overall a success. I will definitely film some more track stuff. It's just tough to be a racer, fabricator, tuner. I wouldn't say that I'm a YouTuber, but engine builder. I just can't do all of it, so I apologize for lacking on the video stuff. And most recently, I have a new project coming in So I'm gonna do some crazy fabrication on the Cadillac. This is the OG car. It is in desperate need of attention. I have since sold the turbo kit off this thing, which has funded this new turbo. And this thing is just like absolutely like stupid. It's literally almost dimensionally the size of this motor. So I'm gonna somehow cram this thing in there, and maybe towards the end of the year or next season, we'll see some single digit stick shift operation stuff going on. A whole lot of the same as what you guys have seen before in a car, but stay tuned for that. And I guess you'll have to be subscribed technically to keep following the build on this thing. So be sure to do that if you care about it. If not, hey, no big deal. We'll see you later.